Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. Best right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live a dream. Your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals.
This is one of the most valuable series that I've done on the radio, partly because I am sharing with you all content that typically I'm paid to present. And I just made the decision, like, you know what? There are leaders out there who aren't in the corporate arena. There are leaders out there who haven't led in corporate America, who deserve this development, who absolutely need this development. And when it comes to my own leadership legacy, I'm committed to reaching leaders like this, then this is how it's got to be done. And so I'm excited about it. And I firmly believe that, where this is a good deal of my content, leadership content, man, there's so much more. There is so much more that can be taught about leadership. And so I'm excited about that as well. Now, the reason we're starting with building your leadership legacy, and it's subtitled The Power of Commitment and Guiding Principles, is because I firmly believe that one of the reasons we are at an all-time lack of leadership is because most leaders happen into their roles, get pushed into their roles, or self-designate themselves into roles that they have not committed to. Like personal commitment, a commitment that's unwavering, a commitment that's clear, a commitment that no matter what happens, they are going to force themselves to keep. Most leaders aren't moving into leadership ranks with that level of commitment. And one of the reasons we're starting here is because I believe that the power of commitment is what anchors a leader and supports them in becoming the effective leader that they intend to be. The power of commitment. And then behind that, not only am I committed, but then I'm very clear on how I handle the difficult decision-making process that every leader has to go through. So I have guiding principles. I'm very clear on my core values, and I'm using that to lead in difficult situations every day. Every day. Great leaders don't stumble into powerful legacies. They don't just accidentally end up there. That's not what happens. That legacy was built with intention. That legacy was built with intention. And part of what I plan to do over the next 90 minutes or so is explore how leadership commitment and guiding principles shape the impact that we leave behind as leaders. Now, there are some lessons I'm going to share with you, lessons I learned from leaders I had the opportunity to encounter, lessons that are both good and bad, because I also believe that some of the most powerful leadership lessons that we learn come from bad leaders. They teach us what not to do. Like, this is something that you absolutely don't want to do because I don't want people feeling this way. And then we're going to learn how to lead with clarity, to lead with consistency. Underline that one. Like leading with consistency and leading with purpose. And I'll come back to why leading with consistency. And I think it's probably you can kind of sit there for a moment and understand why leading with consistency is so important. One of the reasons, and I'll come back to it, but one of the reasons it's important is because the people that we lead are dealing with so much unpredictability, so much uncertainty, that the last thing that they need to be dealing with is the unpredictability and the uncertainty of their leader's mood. And I'm going to flip it a bit, Because I believe that many leaders believe that because they are in a leadership role, that they don't have to be responsible for how they show up. I'm the boss. And what I'm saying is, if you intend to make an impact, if you intend for your business to make an impact, then you absolutely have to be responsible for how you show up. Because if the people that you lead begin to feel that you are inconsistent, unpredictable, and you make them feel uncertain, then they're going to spend most of their time worried about how you show up versus the work. And as a result, you'll have an ineffective team. All right. So first I want to start with, how do we anchor ourselves in a legacy? And how do we anchor ourselves in clear guiding principles? Anchor ourselves in a very clear commitment. So first things first, leading in the 21st century, I believe leadership has been difficult throughout the centuries. But what we do know is that leading in the 21st century is tough. There's no time where things move faster. There's no time where we've been surrounded by more change. And I don't believe there's a time where things have been more unpredictable than they are right now. And without an anchor, even those of us who call ourselves leaders, we will drift. If you are not anchored, you will drift. You will drift. So then it comes down to, for leaders, first and foremost, why are you leading? Even if you've been just pushed into the role, you have a responsibility as a leader, because remember, the idea of leader. And let me pause real quick. Do I have to define leadership? I don't know. Do you think that's necessary, Ide? You think I should define leadership before I keep going? Well, we actually get into the definition of what a leader is. Ade said yes. Maybe we should. You think I should define leadership? Sometimes you like assume like everybody, but what I'm learning is that sometimes you say, a word has been used so much, we've grown up with the word, that like what it really means, people don't really understand it. All right. So what is leadership? Well, first, leadership is a state of being. Wrap your mind around that. Right? So because it's a state of being, just because someone calls you a leader doesn't mean you've arrived yet. I think that's the first part. Because until I be leader, I still haven't arrived yet. I think one of the biggest problems that we have right now in leadership is that there are a lot of people who are either self-designated or otherwise designated who've been pushed into leadership roles or put themselves in leadership roles where they don't be leader, like be the actual being of a leader. They pick and choose when it's convenient for them to be leader. This is tough right now. All these policies, tariffs, attack on DEI. I don't know that I want to be leader right now. Let me defer. And it's another reason why your commitment, your leadership commitment, is incredibly important, because despite what's going on in the external environment, when I'm committed, then I am anchored. I am anchored to a way of being. I'm anchored to a way of being. So no matter the external environment, no matter the political administration, no matter what's happening, I'm anchored to a way of being that I personally have designated for myself. Nobody else designates it for me. No one else. And so the definition of leadership is the office or position of a leader. But that's definition number one. I want you to hear definition number two, because just because you hold the office doesn't mean that you embody the entire definition of leader or leadership, because the second definition says a capacity to lead. So that means that I actually have to have, or I should have, at some level the competence and the capacity to lead. Otherwise, I'm not a leader. You can call me one, but that's not truly how I show up. And number 3 is the act or instance of leading. So meaning that if I'm a person who is committed to leadership, I have the capacity to lead. And second, I act and move in the way that I know that I am constantly leading. I'm always leading. As a matter of fact, in the definition, I don't see anywhere where you are absolved of leadership when you go home, when you step out the office. It just says leadership is a noun. It is a state of being. This is who you always are. This is why the burden of command is so heavy. And I fear that we have leaders today who pick and choose when they want to wear the burden. Think I'll take it off right now. I'll just put it to the side, which is why, hopefully you're beginning to understand, leadership requires commitment. Like to hold a powerful leadership legacy requires that you move with a different level of commitment. I want to start with a couple of stories, and these are my experiences of leadership over the years. The first story is how I came in contact with leadership. And my first experience of witnessing leadership was in the church. I grew up going to church. If you've heard me talk about it, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday night, Friday night Bible class, Saturday choir rehearsal. So you count that up. I spent a lot of time as a child in the church. And so the first examples of leadership I saw were church leaders. We're church leaders. The first leader that I can recall that had an impact on my life was a leader named Pastor Willie Gordon. Pastor Willie Gordon. And I think when you think about leadership, almost anybody that was under his leadership all say the same thing, that he carried a powerful legacy. Like if there's anything, I haven't heard one person say anything bad about Pastor Willie Gordon. I never heard it. Never heard it. This was a man who operated in a deep leadership commitment, was very clear about his commitment. He could articulate it to you, right? This was a man who had very clear operating procedures as a leader, guiding principles as a leader, right? And I had the opportunity to grow up under that type of leadership. And then I also had the opportunity to see other leaders that he had trained, that he had supported, grow, leave, and in many ways multiply the impact of his legacy. Right? So he wasn't just a singular leader. He was the type of leader that actually bred and supported and developed other leaders. Now, what those leaders did and how they went, there's a variety of different ways, right? And that's not necessarily his responsibility, because as leaders, when we get developed to a certain point and thrust out into leadership, then it's up to us to maintain our commitment. It's up to us to maintain our core values. It's up to us to align with our own guiding principles. But that's the first leader that I had an opportunity that really impacted me. And this is in the formidable years of my life. The second leader was a boss of mine. Well, actually, he was the manager of a Jewel Osco's. I grew up in Bellwood. It used to be a Jewel Osco on the corner of Washington and Manheim Road years ago. It's not there anymore. And when I turned 16 years old, I applied there. I got a job, and I started working at this Jewel Osco. Now, mind you, this is one of my first jobs. I think it was my second job all time. And when I came in, I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. I didn't know, I didn't know what good leadership was, all those things in that type of environment. Okay. And so what I do remember is that there were things that I saw that could be handled. The floors weren't always clean. Sometimes the rugs and the mats, they'd be kind of like, man, we going to handle that at some point? And because at the time I was what you call a service clerk. But you could call it, my wife and I were having dinner with another couple the other night, and she was talking about an old role she had where she was, she went to school for aerospace engineering, but they called her a maintenance engineer. She's like, that doesn't really, it sounds like a custodian, right? And I'm like, yeah, so you could have called me back then a maintenance engineer. I had to ensure that I engineered all the carts out the parking lot and back into the store. So that was my job. I was 16 years old. And part of what my role was, to make sure that I kept the front clean, bag groceries, service clerk. That's what I did. All right. So then fast forward, and the person who was managing, I can't even remember this leader. So talk about legacy. I can't remember the first manager. When I came in and the store was kind of haywire, I can't remember that guy. I do remember the gentleman that came to replace him. I do remember him. And what I remember most is how almost immediately the impact of his leadership was felt everywhere. And some people were happy and some people weren't. But what I remember most about him was his ability to spot talent, his ability to make almost an immediate impact. And I remember coming in, I used to work Wednesday nights, come in on a Wednesday night, and I remember walking in one Wednesday night, and the store just looked different. He had been there maybe a week, and the store just looked different. Everything, like the mats were clean, the floors were mopped. You walk up and down the aisles, everything was in the right place. And I knew right away. I was like, oh man, the new manager here is on point. Like, he's on point. And that night I'm pushing in carts. He comes up to the front and he asked me, he says, hey, and I think to this day it's still the same way, where all the sales and grocery stores start on Thursday mornings. And part of it has to do with all the new shipments that came in like on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So all the sales start. I think it's still that way to this day. But anyway, that's how it was. All the sales would start on Thursday morning. And we would put up signs. This is before social media. So you had to actually advertise through the windows of the store what was on sale. You can get a pound of greens for 39 cents, right? 39 cents a pound, be a big sign, 39 cents greens, collard greens, whatever. You had all these big signs. And so he walked me up to the signs and he said, Linal, you see anything wrong with these signs? And I said, crooked. They're not hung well. And the windows are dirty. You got tape from the sales, from like 3 months ago. And he was like, yeah. Can you handle that for me? Can you clean these windows, remove the tape, and then put the signs up in a way that we can be proud of? And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. He says, well, if you do that, then you don't have to push in the carts. I want you to focus on that. And so I'm like, say less. I mean, it's cold outside, say less. I will work on the windows. And so remember, I cleaned up the windows, and I, got everything situated. And I still wasn't done by the time the store closed, because it means a lot of tape on the windows. And so I thought I was going to be in trouble when he came down. Stores closing. I'm still trying to hang these big signs up. He came down and he looked at the windows. And instead of being in trouble, he started to acknowledge me. He was like, hey, man, I really appreciate the time you took to make sure these windows are clean, the tape is off. And he was like, and I'm willing to stay here as long as you're here. We'll close. I'll lock and close when we leave. And so he gave me time to actually do it my way. He went back up to his office. Hey, come knock on the office door when you're done. Everybody else left. He locked the door. Boom. And I finished those windows. And when I got done, he acknowledged me, he recognized me, and he praised me. He said, and I want you to come in every Wednesday night and do our windows. Put up the sale signs. And where I thought, oh, I took too long, no mention of it. Hey, man, take your time and make it happen. And then as we were leaving, he said, we walked outside, we looked back at the windows from the outside. He said, man, that looks good. He says, you want to know why that's important? I said, why is it important? He says, the first impression our customers have, what you just did right here. They see it from the street. They see it from the parking lot when they walk in. And that did, like it did, you know how something does, like something clicked for me. Like, this guy's different. Like, he's different. Leadership, legacy. Leadership, legacy. I took the lessons that he taught me over the time I was at Jewel Osco, and I still deploy them in my business to this day. Leadership, legacy. But see, he was committed to something. He wasn't committed to getting home on time, getting in, get into the bar, whatever. Like, this guy's, he's slowing me down. He was committed to excellence. And so even if we have to stay open an hour later, even if I have to stick around an hour later, I'm here. I'm here. Handle your job. Do what I asked you to do. Leadership, legacy. Leadership, legacy. The third leader was a billionaire. Now, and by the way, there are leaders in between there that taught me phenomenal lessons. I mean, phenomenal lessons. But now I'm skipping. I'm skipping from 16 to 26. But no. I'm skipping from 16 to like 32. So let's double the years. All right. And between that, I had good leaders. I had bad leaders. I saw some things. But there was another leader who really made an impact on me, and not just on me, but really changed a lot about my life in a lot of different ways, because I spent 10 years working for the organization that they created. And this leader was a multi-billionaire. He started a company called TDS, and then they had another subsidiary company named US Cellular, so a wireless company. And I worked at US Cellular for 10 years. I worked at 10 years before I left to start my own business. But I learned some things from the billionaire himself because I had the opportunity to advance in my roles and gain exposure that I otherwise wouldn't have had. And I want to share 6 of the guiding principles that I learned from this leader. But first, let me make sure, I got them here. I want to share 6 of the guiding principles. Now, this is a story about Roy Carlson. You can Google him, you can look him up. But at the time where I learned these 6 principles, his 6 leadership principles, he was 96 years old. So a 96-year-old billionaire, founder of TDS and the founder of US Cellular. And I learned these principles because he was getting acknowledged at an organization. They were acknowledging him, giving him an award for his leadership legacy. And I had the opportunity as one of the executives to be present when his son, not him, when his son shared these 6 principles that his father used to grow the company and had taught him to say, hey, son, if you want to take yourself to the next level, if you want to make a powerful impact, then these are the things that you need to understand about leadership. I firmly believe that there is there is nothing greater than the ability to powerfully commit to something. And we live in a world now where it kind of comes down to what's easiest versus like what I'm fully committed to. Like, I'm committed to this, and so as a result, I'm going to show up and move forward because I committed. I made this commitment. My commitment is not based on how other people show up. Well, if I had known I was going to have employees like this, I would have never made this commitment. Or if I had known my wife was going to act like this, I would have never committed to her. That's the power of commitment. It was learning about the true definition of commitment that actually changed my stance on marriage. Because when I learned that if I am committed, that the power of my commitment can actually permeate how another person shows up. Like, the power of my commitment can actually influence how another person shows up. When I realized that, and it was kind of like, oh, so my commitment impacts the commitment of the person I'm with. And so if I'm fully committed and I can show up in a way that's fully committed, then this could actually work. I said, oh, then maybe I could do this. All right. So what is a commitment? Let's start there. So the word commitment is a noun. So if it's a noun, once again, we have another state of being. I really want you all to get this because I believe the Creator, in all his wisdom, made it where the things that matter most are actually states of being. Like, and so then we have to ask ourselves, do I operate in a state of commitment? Because if I operate in a state of commitment, that means I also operate in a state of consistency. So what are the definitions of commitment? And by the way, I slipped past this. If you're a pastor and you're like, okay, this is all sounds great, but what's the biblical connection? I got scriptures for each one of these. Like, I took the time over the weekend. I was like, for my pastors, because leadership is multidimensional. It's one of the things I talk about in my book in the very beginning, that leadership is multidimensional. And by the way, if you didn't know, I have a book coming out November 8th. So make sure you go to linalharris.com, join the mailing list, the email list, so you can be notified when the book is available. And you'll be able to purchase it through my website, on Amazon, all the different ways you can buy a book. And you want to check this book out. It's different. It's very different from most leadership text. But going back to this idea around commitment, like, commitment is a state of being because it's a noun. And so the first definition of commitment is an agreement or pledge to do something in the future. Now, an agreement or pledge to do something in the future is not necessary unless I know, and the person I'm making the pledge to knows, I may be tempted to do something else, right? I would not have Ade pledge himself to something if I don't have to worry about whether he would do it or not. You all understand? But I could say, I could have the knowledge that I'm about to do something big. And when I do something big, the people close to me are going to be approached. They're going to be asked to tell the secrets. And they're likely going to be offered large sums of money. Like, I could know this as a leader. So then I say, Ade, you are in my inner circle. I need for you to pledge to hold the secrets of the inner circle, no matter what. And he might be like, of course. I said, no. I need you to pledge on your manhood that you will hold the secrets of the inner circle no matter what, right? He says, you know what, Linal, I pledge, I'm committed. You don't have to worry about it. And when he walks away in that moment, he's thinking, why would he make me? Of course I would do that. Then fast forward 6 months, gets a phone call. Someone says, hey, we'll pay you this much if you let us know what's going on. Now he's got to think about it. You pay me how much? right? And now he's up against his word. Now he's up against the pledge. Now he's up against the commitment that, man, Linal don't pay me that much. Am I going to remain committed? Like, this is what commitment is. Commitment is something I'm willing to do, something I pledge to do, even when the conditions say I should do something else. That's commitment. That's commitment. As a leader, I pledge myself to people, not when it's convenient, but even when it's inconvenient. I do not want to lead right now. I do not want to show up for them. But because I have pledged myself as a leader, I am going to show up for them anyway. I don't think they deserve it. These folks, I can't believe they're acting like this. I can't believe I have to deal with these things. But I pledge myself to them, so I'll show up. A commitment is something pledged. It is the state or instance of being obligated, and listen to this, especially for those of you all who listen to me on a regular basis. The state or instance of being obligated or emotionally impelled. What do emotions do? For those of you who listen to me on a regular basis, like, what do emotions do? Your emotions are how you powerfully create. Your emotions are how you powerfully create in this life. And so I am creating something as a leader. And I'm so committed that I am emotionally impelled, even when I don't want to. Something inside me says, this is what we feel like doing, even though this is not what we want to do, because this is what we committed to. This is what we committed to. That is leadership commitment. Leadership commitment. The second part of the definition is the act of committing to a charge or trust. The act of committing to a charge or trust. So I have entrusted myself to a particular set of guiding principles in terms of how I will lead. I am committed to these principles. Now, I don't think I have to explain why this is important for leadership, but I will. And this is where I want to talk about the framework. The leadership intention framework that I share with leaders who are leading in businesses in different capacities when I'm asked to come in and teach is, number one, that your leadership intention equals your consistent way of being as a leader. My leadership intention equals the consistent way I intend to show up as a leader. You will always get this from me as a leader. I believe that anyone that is a Slayer Goals member, you're part of that community that I lead, that you can say, I consistently show up with energy. I don't come to a Slayer like Thursday night, 7 p.m. We had one of our sessions. I've been at it all day. I didn't come to that session like, all right, y'all. So we're going to talk about money and budgeting and the 3 different levels of finances. I didn't come like that. Oh, by the way, I'm tired, today, so I'm not going to have as much energy as I normally have. I'm doing this because I promised I would. I didn't show up that way. My leadership intention is that I lead and teach with passion. And so as a result, I got to pull myself together. I was on the phone with my wife 10 minutes before, I said, okay, I got to go. I got to go now because now I have to actually infuse myself with energy that wasn't there. I got to pull it from my surroundings so I can show up in the consistent way of being that I'm committed to. As we get deeper into this conversation, I believe it's easy for some people listening to be like, well, Linal's talking about leadership. That doesn't include me. I'm going to wait till this series is over and I'll check back in. That's a big time mistake, because all of us function as leaders in some capacity. All of us function as leaders in our lives in some capacity. And if you intend to grow, let me put it like this. Most folks have an intent to be a millionaire. You do realize that if you become a millionaire, you're thrust into leadership almost immediately. If you become a multimillionaire, you're thrust into leadership almost immediately. I don't know if it's true. I was looking at an article last night that was saying that George Floyd's family that received a $50 million payout, they're broke already. Now, why is that? Again, if we're not ready for it, they were thrust into a role of leadership. Like, you get that kind of money, now you got to lead financial advisors, you got to lead attorneys, y'all follow what I'm saying? And if you don't have a philosophy for leadership, you're in trouble. But not just with them, but for your family. If within your family, you don't have a clear philosophy for leadership, core values. Let me give you an example. One of the things that I say to my son often is that what Harrises do? Now, the reason I can ask that question is because in our household, there have been core values that have been set up within the home that we all live by. Our children can hold us accountable to those values. Like, Dad, I thought that we weren't supposed to move like that, right? And it creates a conversation. You know what, you right, man? Et cetera, right? Like, it creates a conversation. And for anyone listening, if you have a family, then this is a conversation for you. I don't care if you're the cousin, the uncle, whatever. This is a conversation for you. And something for you to think about. Like, these are the values. Even for me, as I'm teaching this, I'm like, man, does everybody know the values of inspirational perspective? Like, I don't know if we had that conversation recently, Ade. Like, what are the values of inspirational perspective as an organization? What are the values of Insights for Life? By the way, they're different values because they have different functions, right? So what are the values of Insights for Life as an organization? One of the things that we do is whenever we're about to work with an organization, one of the things that we actually align their values with our values to see if it's a fit. Like, can we actually work together? Will this work? And we show it to them. And there have been times where I've turned down work because I'm like, this is not a fit. It's not a fit. Like, you all's mission doesn't align with my purpose. What you want to do doesn't align with what we want, the impact we want to have on people. So let's talk about this thing called diversity first. Let's talk about this thing called diversity that is actually under attack right now. If a person were to ask me, Linal, do you believe in the business value of diversity? My answer, without flinching, would be 100% yes. In fact, if you look at the teams that I've built, you can look through every company. I have diverse teams. I don't have monolithic teams. Okay. Now, my belief is if you believe in diversity, then your team, like, everybody on your team don't look like you. That's it. Now, I've been asked as an African-American CEO or a black leader, why my entire team isn't black. I've been asked that before by black folk, by so-called black folk. Hey, man, why you didn't give somebody else that opportunity? But if I'm going to say out my mouth, I want y'all to listen to me because we'll get mad when somebody else does it to us in Fortune 500 world, right? We'll be like, no, they didn't. Look at that. There's no diversity. But then we'll go build a business where there's no diversity too. You can't have it both ways. Like either you believe in it or you don't. Now I know this is going to trigger some folks, right? This might trigger some folks. And I'm not saying sometimes maybe you don't have access to diverse talent pools. One of the things I always tell CEOs in Fortune 500 companies is that then you have to go gain access to diverse talent pools, right? We see a pullback from all that right now. Let me be very clear about something because we're going to talk about inclusion. And I want to get deep into inclusion, but I feel like I'm leaping over something if I don't talk about diversity. Inclusion is a competence. It's a leadership competence. Diversity is something different. It's not a leadership competence, right? It's a strategy. Y'all follow? It's a strategy. And if you have a leader right now that is like struggling with everything that's going on, they're like, well, I agree with the Trump administration, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can be your trumpet. Like, you take this, you let them hear it, because I'm about to break it down for you. Okay? I'm going to break it down for you in the best way that I possibly can. All right. So there's no question that there's been an attack on diversity in the workplace in the United States of America. And the real question I would have is that attack backed by data? Now, let me be clear about something. I spent 12 years of my professional career in corporate America running global operations for different organizations. And one of the things that I had to do to be a responsible and excellent operator is pay attention to data. In operations, you don't do what the people feel like because everything is based on the numbers. If you do what even the CEO feels like, it may not properly impact the numbers. So it was my job, even if, and I can tell you, I remember sitting in one of my CEO's offices explaining, hey, this is the direction we need to go if we are going to be viable in this business. And he was so upset by the numbers that he cursed me out. Like he was spitting and everything. I can't. And I just sat there. I waited for him to finish. By the way, for the millennials and Gen Zers, because Ide's looking at me like, you got cursed out in corporate America? And any baby boomer or Xer that's my age knows that back in the day, you can go into an office and get cursed out. You could be like, I don't feel psychologically safe. You couldn't run to HR back then. They'd be like, psychologically what? Man, grow up. Sit down. It wasn't none of that. My psychological safety is none of that. I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying we had to have thicker skin back then. All right. So this man cursed me out. I waited for him to finish. And then I told him, I said, sir, with all due respect, your emotions don't change the numbers. Now, here's the thing. If his emotions did change the numbers, I'd have lost my job that day. But he was a CEO. He got out of his feelings and he was like, let me see these numbers again. And he looked at him. He's like, do what you got to do. He wasn't happy, but the numbers said we need to go this direction. It's that simple. You can be mad. You can be glad. Doesn't matter. The numbers say we need to go this direction. I want you to listen to me clearly. When it comes to diversity, there are numbers and data that back diversity. You can get scared of the Trump administration. You can change your entire company, right? I've had this conversation with executives like, man, you sure you want to do that? You can do that, but the numbers back diversity. A few years ago, and this is back 2013. So when I say a few years ago, like a decade, more than a decade ago, when I moved from operations and my CEO asked me to take on the chief diversity officer role at the company I was working at, the first thing I did, because I came from operations, was I was like, okay, I don't know, excuse me, how else to explain diversity other than to get numbers. That's what I did for a living before that, is to find data and numbers that back this conversation up. I don't want to go into the offices of peers that don't look like me and have a conversation that sounds good. I want to have a conversation that actually, the math is behind me. Y'all, is this making sense? And by the way, if you're a diversity leader right now and you're struggling in your organization, consider that you might not be having hardcore data conversations. You're having like emotional conversations. This ain't about emotions. This is about data. What is this competence of inclusion? A leader is inclusive when they have the ability to create an environment where every employee feels they can fully contribute, and every customer is optimally served, regardless of differences. If you call us up and you want us to do work in your organization, it doesn't come down to what you look like as a customer. Like, every customer is optimally served regardless of differences. And in this organization, every employee can fully contribute. Fully contribute. Now, as a CEO, why is that important to me? The reason it's important to me is because if Ade is on my team, when I pay him, he doesn't get a fraction of that pay. He doesn't get a fraction. He gets 100% of what we agreed on, which means I need 100% out of his work product. And if I won't listen to this man, and he doesn't feel like he can fully show up, and he doesn't feel like he can fully contribute, then who's losing? Me or him? He getting 100% of his pay. But I'm not getting 100% of his contribution because of how I show up as a leader? That's goofy on me. That's goofy on me as a leader. Like, I need 100% of his contribution if I'm paying out 100% of his pay. That's just how I think about this, right? So organizations that push inclusion are saying, hey, we care about the investment we made in you so much that we want to make sure that you can give everything you have. When you put your hand up, I'm not, here we go, because you look different from me, because you talk differently. Like I need to hear what you have to say. What's your contribution? So that way, when I pay payroll, I know it's a good investment. It's that simple. I think one of the reasons this is disconnected in the corporate arena is because in the corporate arena, leaders are so disconnected from what's being paid to their employees. Right? But when I was in corporate America, the largest line item of my budget was my payroll. So I got to work that. If you're a leader and you're listening, you got to work that. That's the largest line item in your budget is the payroll. Are you getting 100%? Okay. Here's another reason why inclusion matters. I should have gave this slide to you. I didn't. So I want you all to imagine a chart, right? And on the x-axis, it's the number of teams, and on the y-axis, it's team performance. Kind of like this, okay? And team performance is poor when it's a diverse team that's managed poorly. And then if you have a homogeneous team, everybody looks the same, then the performance kind of teeters up a bit over a diverse team that's managed poorly. I think one of the reasons leaders feel more comfortable with homogeneous teams is because if I'm a bad leader, then I need a homogeneous team if we're going to perform halfway well. Because if I have a diverse team and I'm not a good leader, we're not going to perform well. But here's the kicker. Diverse teams managed well outperform homogeneous teams. So it comes down to leadership competence. This is why inclusion matters so much. 75% of today's workforce are millennials. For those of us who are Gen Xers, baby boomers, you probably already get this. You kind of like, man, this looks way different from when I was in. It's like 75% of the workforce is made up of millennials. For the first time in U.S. history, minorities make up the most new hires between the age of 25 and 54. And women in particular are driving that trend, right? This is data backed, right? This is, where did we get this one? It was published back in 2019, and I can't see exactly what the source was. Oh, Pew Research Center. I'm sharing my sources too. Okay. The source for the minority population being the majority by 2045 is brookings.edu. You can go check that out. Okay. So the United States is quickly becoming more diverse. All right. So what does this mean? If the U.S. is quickly becoming more diverse, then the workplace will be more diverse too. It's that simple. And so businesses that don't value diversity and inclusion and or do not have a clear diversity and inclusion strategy are dooming themselves to failure. Period. Right? This is what the data is telling us. All right. So then why does this matter to us? Well, in 2025, millennials make up the majority of the workforce, right? But majority of the bosses are Gen X. That's a matter of inclusion, right? They think different from me. I'm an Xer. So I need to figure out how to be inclusive if I'm gonna be successful. All right. 44% of millennials classify themselves as minorities, right? So if I'm a white leader, I better get with it. I better start becoming more culturally competent and inclusive, because most of the folks that work for me are not going to look like me, just based off the population itself. The U.S. is quickly becoming more diverse. The workplace will be more diverse. And simply, we understand that if a business doesn't value this, it cannot be successful. Now, I'm not saying that because it sounds good. I'm saying it because there's also data, 2024 data from Manpower Group Research and SHRM, that says about 7 in 10 companies reported talent shortages in 2024. 7 out of 10. How many of you all are having a hard time hiring folks? Like I said, my wife and I, between the two of us, we run 6 companies. All right. We've been in interviews. I know this to be true. I know that there are not just good people growing on trees. Talented folks growing on trees. You get where I'm going? And so there is a talent shortage. It's at the worst level ever. Part of it is because, our education system is worse than it's ever been. So it's hard to get folks coming in who actually, if y'all follow, here's the other part. 61% of leaders identified attracting and retaining talent as a top risk. 61% of leaders, right? In the corporate space. The global talent shortage has tripled in the past decade. It's tripled. We have these conversations, folks ask me, you think AI is going to replace all these jobs? And I'm like, man, these companies, I just saw another company that laid off about 4,000 people. I'm like, y'all moving too fast. All that talent, maybe you should have thought about redeploying them in some other capacity. Like, they moving too fast. And it's already happening. One company I mentioned not too long ago did this. They're already hiring back the folks. They dropped 10,000. I think they brought back on 3,500 already. But think about the emotional and cultural impact. More than half of international businesses polled reported skill shortages as well. So it's not just an American thing. And over 3 in 4 organizations in the U.S. have experienced difficulty recruiting full-time positions. 3 in 4, that's 75%. Nearly 50% of these organizations have faced retention difficulties in the last 12 months. They can't keep people. The reason they can't keep people is because they have poorly trained leaders. People don't leave jobs. They leave leaders. I always say that the most obstinate, the most difficult person I've ever led is me. Always. I'm the first one to not do what I say. And I think almost all of us can relate to that in some capacity. I'm going to do this, and then you don't. And so how do I lead myself? And I believe that this series not only supports us in how we lead ourselves, but it supports us in how we lead others. And so I want to kick it off with why leadership, why you want to pay attention to this series, why you want to listen to the series. And then I'll do a quick review of where we've been, and then jump into the impact and the power of courageous leadership. So, leadership, especially when you think about it today, like how critical just really good leadership is and the impact that a leader can have on everyone around them. Anybody that, for whatever reason, is impacted by how they show up, what they do, there's a real big impact. All right, let's start here. I did some research on the impact of leadership, and I want to first kind of walk you through my thinking and why I did the research in the first place. So I wanted to understand the correlation between effective leadership and business revenue. All right. And when I'm saying this, I want you to think about yourself, because you are the CEO of your life. So I'm not just talking to the CEOs of Fortune 500 organizations, the CEOs of mid-cap businesses that are doing between $10 and $100 million a year. I'm talking to you too, because you are the CEO of your life, and whatever your numbers are directly correlated to your personal leadership. I want to talk about the courage that it takes to close the gap and live your values as a leader. Like, to live aligned with your core values every day takes a great deal of courage. And there's a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that I want to open this up with. Courage is more exhilarating than fear. And in the long run, it is easier. Listen to this, right? Courage is more exhilarating than fear. And in the long run, it's easier. We do not have to become heroes overnight. Just one step at a time, meeting each obstacle, each thing as it comes up. That's Eleanor Roosevelt. So another way for us to think about courage is my ability to meet each obstacle individually as they come up with consistency around my leadership intent, my leadership commitment, my guiding principles, and my core values. And I can tell you from experience, it takes courage. You got to be a little crazy. But you know what? I wouldn't say that. Let me rewind that. You got to have a great deal of faith. And let me say this first and foremost. Like, part of my leadership courage is anchored in my belief in God. My belief that God is my source. I can remember being in corporate America and making some decisions that I knew my CEO didn't agree with, that I knew, and it was like, but this is the right thing to do. And I knew that God was my source. If you're a corporate leader right now, because a lot of people, well, Linal, it sounds good for entrepreneurs, but you don't understand my senior leaders. You don't understand my CEO. What I would say to you is you have a leader that outranks them. And your obligation is to be in alignment and in integrity with the highest leader of them all. That's why I lead according to my core values, no matter what. That's why even in those situations where it felt unfavorable, I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And my phone would ring. Harris, what are you doing? Well, this was the right thing to do. Come to my office right now. I would sit there, take the grilling, I'm like, oh, man, I made it out without getting fired. Why? Because I'm covered. You do realize they can't let you go unless the man upstairs gives them the ability to let you go. And then if they do let you go, that means the man upstairs got you back. That means he's got you back. He's already got something better for you. Another door is opening where you can lead in the way that he intends for you to lead. All right? So thus for my corporate leaders who are like, man, it sounds good. I'm telling you, it is good. All right? All right. So what is courage? Courage is choosing principle over comfort. Courage is choosing truth over approval. Man, do we need leaders like that today? Man, courageous leadership is acting with conviction despite fear, pushing through resistance no matter how much, and vision in the face of uncertainty no matter how deep. That's courageous leadership. Courageous leadership. One of the reasons I created the leadership tour of Uganda is because I know leaders need to exercise their courage. Like, it's a muscle. I know leaders need to exercise their courage. I'm like, what better way to build courage than to do something you're afraid of? People are afraid of gorillas. People are afraid of animals overall. They don't understand them, right? Let's go out there. Let's be on the ground with some rhinos. I'm like, what? I remember the last trip, we were on a rhino trek. We pull up. I say, all right. The ranger says, all right, let's get out. They're like, we getting out? We're getting out. What? And then there's trust in the leadership of the ranger at that point, right? We getting out? But then when we got back in, I said, how was that? That was mind-blowing. It was amazing. When you display courageous leadership in your life, on the other side, there is a fulfillment that you can't even begin to imagine. When was the last time you made a decision that scared you as a leader, but you knew it was the right thing to do? I just want you to think about that. Like, when was the last time you made a decision that scared you as a leader, but you did it because you knew this is the right thing to do? It's scary, but it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for me to do. When was the last time? One of the reasons, if you're thinking about this and you can't think of one, because it's very easy to go with the flow nowadays. And if you can't think of one of the reasons that happens is because we succumb to the enemies of courage. What are the enemies of courage? Fear, failure. What if I make this bold decision and fail? You can even put what ifs at the top of the list. What if, right? But fear of failure, fear of rejection, right? If you're in the corporate arena, rejection is fear of job loss. And number 3, fear of change. These are the enemies of courage. It takes courage to be an inclusive leader. Why aren't humans naturally inclusive? Because we hate change. We don't like things that aren't similar, right? So in order for me to be inclusive, it requires courage. The enemy of courage is change. So when it comes to courage, if I'm a human being and we know that psychologically humans don't like change, We know that humans fear uncertainty. We know that humans struggle to see similarities in people who look different. We know that as human beings, we do everything we can to avoid comfort. Then really, courage is going against the grain of everything I feel naturally. Everything I feel naturally, I'm going to go against the grain of that. Walt Disney said courage is the main quality of leadership. I'm almost tempted to say that if you're not a courageous leader, you're not a leader at all. You have a title, but you're not truly a leader. When leaders choose safety, they lose trust. There's no innovation and there's no growth. I want you to really understand this. When leaders choose safety, they lose, like people don't trust them. And I always like to go to the battlefield, right? If I'm leading a regiment and every time there's an explosion, I'm like, like how you think my troops gonna feel? Every time, bullets fly over our head, how do you think the people I lead gonna feel? What's the equivalent? Every time the marketplace changes, I'm like, I don't know what we gonna do. Every time we come up against some type of, business challenge, I seem disoriented. Every time there's a drop or every time there's a behavior change, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. You think people have confidence in me and my leadership? Do they really want to follow me? Courage in leaders inspires courage in the team. Think about the regiment commander. The explosion goes off, the bullets are whizzing, and they just stand there stone cold. You all know what we need to do next, right? We're going to take the hill, right? And people are listening to him. A lot of times they're probably thinking this guy is nuts. We're going to take the hill. Some of you are going to make the hill with me. Some of you won't. Either way, we're going to take the hill. Let's go on my count. You think folks are like, even if they're afraid, the likelihood of hesitation is low, right? It's like, man, I'm behind this brother. I admire his courage. It's no different in the marketplace. Courage in leaders inspire courage in teams. The more courageous you are, the more engaged your team will be. Inclusion requires courage, especially today. Courage is required to face biases. This is how my knee-jerk reaction to that, but I'm going to push anyway. Courage is required to build bridges. Man, this is a difficult person. We don't get along. I don't see any similarities in us, but I need to build a bridge so we can make this happen. Effective leadership. I would say this. When you think about the family today, when you think about the family and the attacks that are taking place on the family, it requires a different level of courage for those of us that lead in the home. Courage with our children? No, you can't do that. No, you can't watch that. No. They may be disgruntled. They may be upset. That's okay. Because what I want to leave behind is a legacy. One day you'll say, man, my dad told me this and I'm telling you now, right? Legacy. Families need courageous leadership like never before. How do I address conflicts in the home with love? Address conflicts in the home with consistency, right? My wife might not like it, but it seems familiar, right? It ain't like, nah, man, we ain't doing that. There's a quote by W.H. Murray. He was a mountaineer. He climbed mountains. And he wrote the story of Everest. And in the story of Everest, he put this quote. And let me pull it up real quick. He put this quote. He said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy. The chance to draw back or the chance to go back, right? You're climbing a mountain, starts to get difficult. You can still see the base camp, right? By the way, to me, Everest is crazy. It's like, folks be like, Linal, you do all kinds of things. Will you ever climb Mount Everest? I'm like, nah, I'm good. I feel close to God already. I don't have to go to the summit. I'm good on that, right? That's not a commitment of mine. But I admire this brother because, W.H. Murray, he was committed to getting to the top. And he said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Listen to this. Always ineffectiveness. Always ineffectiveness. Look at your leadership. Is there hesitancy? Do you make decisions and then flip them? That leads to ineffectiveness. Then he goes on to say, let me read it from the beginning. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. If that's not true, I don't know what to, man. I've seen this happen in my life. And unless you've been truly committed to something, that quote doesn't resonate. Committed through fire. I'm holding this position through the fire. And that's when you see providence move. I don't know how that happened, but it did. Because I was committed. I was committed. There is something, you can go back to the universal laws. There is something innate inside of us. When as leaders we commit to something, it begins to move mountains. How committed are you? How committed are you as a leader? It is that commitment that takes your courage to another level. So what we know is that courage turns clarity into action. Courage turns clarity into action. There's a quote by Ernest Hemingway. He says, courage is grace under pressure. Grace under pressure. And here's the thing I want you to know about courage. Courage is not a one-time act. It's a discipline. It's a discipline. It's driven because you are so clear on the vision. You're so clear on where you're going that you just forge ahead. Again, remember, discipline, vision equals discipline, right? So I see it. And so no matter what's happening around me, this is the course we're charting. I'm committed. I'm committed. I'm committed. I'm disciplined because I can see it. I see where we're going. We go back to Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, courage develops step by step. Step by step. I gain more courage. And I want you to think about it in this term. What's one courageous step that you can take this week in your leadership? What's one courageous step that you can take this week in your work? What's one courageous step you can take in your relationships? Whenever I teach on this topic, I always open up with a story. I'm going to share the story with you guys. You may have heard it before. I'm going to share the story with you all this morning. But I always open up with this story. Back in 2005, I joined a brand new organization. I left the company. I was leading at the company at like a supervisory level. I had 4 people reporting into me. And I remember when I made the announcement that I was leaving, right? By the way, I left a leader. I didn't leave the organization. I left the leader, right? I felt undervalued by the leader. I felt unheard by the leader. I felt like all those things, right? So found another organization. By the way, I told a story a few weeks back about the power of reputation. How I got the other job was reputation. So the leader that hired me into that job had heard about me. 30 minutes in the interview, he's like, oh, you know what? I heard enough, right? Ended the interview, brought HR in, hired me. So now I go back. I'm leaving this company. And I can recall when the announcement came, had 4 people on my team. There were tears. Oh, my God, you're leaving. And what I didn't realize is that the tears weren't for me. Human beings don't like change. The tears were for change. But I took it as those tears were for me. That must mean I'm a phenomenal leader. But y'all gonna miss me? I ain't think some of y'all like me like that, right? Oh, y'all gonna miss? Oh, man, I must be nice with it, right? And so I went into this new organization really thinking highly of myself as a leader. I can recall I came in August 2005. October 2005, they had a leadership forum. And at this leadership forum, all the leaders from around the company at a certain level, they all come in, the CEO addresses all the leaders, the executive team addresses these leaders, and they did what they called a survey, like a culture and engagement survey on every leader. And the leaders that were the most effective, right? These are the leaders that got almost a perfect score on a 5-point scale. When I say almost a perfect score, you have to be at 4.96 in order to be recognized or above, okay? Which means pretty much perfect on a scale of effective leadership. And I'm sitting in the audience and they're celebrating these leaders. They're calling the names. These leaders are walking to the stage and they're celebrating them. And as I'm sitting in the audience, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, next year, I'm going to be on that stage. Next year is my year. Because I'm a great leader. I mean, when I left, people were crying and all. It's like, I'm a good leader. I'm a great leader. Next year, I'm going to be on that stage. So fast forward. The conference ends, the forum ends. And, you know, a year goes by. Year goes by quickly. It's 2006, October 2006. And all the leaders are back. And I've done my year of leadership. I've led my team. And if you ask me, outside of the data, I did a great job. I did a phenomenal job. Clearly, I lacked awareness. Okay. This is 20 years ago. So anyway, I'm sitting in this forum, and we get to the part of the leadership forum where they're calling leaders onto the stage. And I know for a fact I'm a phenomenal leader. I know I'm a great leader. My team should love me. My last team loved me. And so they should love me too. And they should show their love and how they filled out their survey for me, the engagement survey, the culture survey for me. And so they begin calling names. And you know how when you know you're about to get up, like if you know you're about to get up, you have to arrange yourself a particular way. And so when they got to the H's, so I think it was like, you know, letter right before H. And I started because I'm a Harris, right? H-A. So I'm going to be one of the first people up in the H's. And so I took the journal off I had everything ready so I could get up. You know how you turn your legs a little bit in your seat, you scoot to the edge of your seat. And I'm like, yeah, it's my time. It's my time. And they start calling the names and the H's and they go, they like H-E, H-O. Oh, that's interesting. I'm like, are they doing it by region? Maybe they're doing it differently. Let me tell you something, man, about human beings. We can see very clearly that we're not included, and we will still make up stories for why we should be included. Like, in my mind, I was like, they must be doing it differently. I was so sure I was going to be on that stage, right? Anyway, they got to the Z's. They never called me. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm shocked, right? Okay. I got to see my results, man. My team is tripping because I know I'm a perfect leader. Because to be on the stage, you're pretty much, you're creme de la creme. But at that time of my life, I'm like, I'm creme de la creme. I get at the end of the forum, I jet out right there, get my envelope. I can barely wait. People coming up having small talk, and I'm like, yeah, okay, man, I need to look at these results. What's going on here? So finally, I make it to my car. I don't even pull out the parking lot. I just open my form. I look at it. It's multiple pages. And at the very top, my heart drops because I'm not a 4.9 nothing. I'm not even a 4.0. I'm not even a 3. At the top, it's a 2.95. My heart drops. Like, wait a second. I start to flip through the pages, looking for the lowest score. When I get to the lowest score, it's almost 0. And the lowest score is under respect. Now, one of the things that happens to us when we receive truth is shock. We go through Sarah, shock, anger. So I'm shocked first, right? Shock, anger, resistance. Y'all know Sarah, right? I'm shocked at first. What? Then I'm angry. Disrespect. I'm a brother. Like, I ain't disrespect nobody, man. I'm angry now. This is foolishness. I'm resistant to the results. The data's right in front of me. It's black and white. Right? I got multiple people on my team. They all saying the same thing. But I'm resistant to it. A few months go by, and my HR business partner, we all meet about the results with my team. We're in the meeting, and by the way, like, respect was the worst, but there were other things that I was lacking in. You know, accountability, you name it. It was just, you don't get a 2.9 doing well. So we're in the meeting. We're going through each of these different factors. And, I can remember, man, just, like heart beating, blood. It's like, man, this is, whew. And we get to respect. And I'm like, yeah, man, like I got almost a 0, right? I think it was like a 0.9 or something. And I said, okay, so the HR partner, her name was Kim. She's like, all right, can you all give Linal some feedback on respect? And, at first it's quiet in the room. And I'm like, yeah, because there ain't nothing to say, And then one of my superstars raises her hand. I thought she was my girl. Like, I thought we was, And she goes, yeah, I can give some feedback. She said, Linal, whenever we have a conversation, you got your BlackBerry in your hand. If it vibrates, you look down in the middle of me talking. I just feel unheard. I feel like, you're going through the motions. You don't really hear me, right? By the way, go back to the leadership framework. Put it back up real quick. When we created this leadership framework at Insights for Life, it wasn't because we guesstimated. This comes from not only personal experience, but it comes from data, right? Curious listening drives so many factors in your leadership. One of them it drives is respect. And I can remember getting the feedback. And when I got the feedback, you can take the frameworks down. When I got the feedback, I was resistant to it. Because I'm like, well, you got to understand something. I'm running the entire operation for this company. And so the reason I have to be attached to my phone is if something goes wrong with the operation, I'm responsible. So I had all these reasons. And what I started to realize is that I was making my perceived importance, my importance, over and beyond their need for respect, their need to be heard. My responsibility as a leader to curiously listen to what they were saying. After she went, another person went, and they started giving examples. Like, it wasn't just, they were giving me examples of how I had been disrespectful. And I remember, like, sitting there and taking in this feedback. And shortly after that, I began to realize that true respect requires that you have an intimate relationship with everyone that you lead, that you know what is respectful to them and what is not, that you're asking questions, and hopefully they're answering those questions truthfully. And I didn't have that with my team at the time. I was running the business, so I thought, but not doing it effectively. That was 2006. 2007, I did my work, went back to the forum, and once again, I wasn't on that stage. I believe the next year I was like a 3.5, right? 2008, I got promoted into a new role. And part of that promotion was because I just got my score and I was more like a 4.0, which was considered good. But I wasn't on the stage though, right? And for me, the vision was being on that stage. I didn't want to be a good leader. I wanted to be a great leader. I wanted to be an effective leader. And so 2009, I'm not on the stage. I'm a 4.3. I was like a 4.2, 4.3. 2010, I'm not on the stage, right? But I'm like a 4.7, 4.8. And now I'm asking questions like, hey, what makes you, what would make you feel that on the respect level, there's nothing in between us? Like what? I'm asking different questions now, right? Because the vision is to get on the stage, but something shifted. I no longer wanted to be on the stage for me. I wanted to be on the stage for my team, because I began to realize that if I was what they call one of the dynamic leaders of this organization, one of the effective leaders of this organization, it meant that my service to my team was top notch. And if my service to my team was top notch, it meant that we were doing phenomenal work. And by the way, we had customer impact. 2011. At this point, it's been 6 years. I'm so used to not getting on the stage, I don't even prepare anymore. I'm just, I celebrate the leaders that are on the stage. And for me, by the way, one of the things I started doing is leaders that got on the stage, I started going to lunch with them. Yo, tell me what you do as a leader, right? I'm curious. Like, tell me more about how you lead in difficult situations with your team. And pretty much I was interviewing them. I'm like, I need to know everything about you, how you move, I wanted that mentorship. 2011, they start to announce the dynamic leaders, the effective leaders of the organization. And they're going through the alphabet. I don't even realize they're at H. And I hear my name, Linal Harris. And man, I'll never forget that day, because it was something I had worked for 6 years. And who I thought I would be walking down that aisle was completely different. Because the man that walked down that aisle was humble. I was crying. I was moved. But more than anything, I was proud of who my team had become, more so than who I had become. Like the kind of team that I built, the kind of work that we were doing. And I was able to walk that stage for the rest of my career at the company before I left. Why am I telling that story? Because the thing that I had to learn how to develop that I didn't necessarily have access to back then was courage. The courage to tell my senior leader, if I received an important text, that the reason I didn't text them right back was because I was sitting with someone who was responsible for what they wanted to hear. And I was giving them my full attention. The courage to actually put my team first in situations where often other leaders would abandon their teams. The courage to make difficult decisions. The courage to push against the other leaders in the room and say, that's not good for our people. The courage to be the voice all by itself that's saying, I'm not sure that's going to work, you guys. The courage to say, that will poorly impact our folks. Are we sure we want to do that? The courage when it didn't feel, hey, we're gonna, take the budget and cancel this team outing. Like the courage to say that's not the right thing to do. That's not the best way to spend the money. While all my peers looked at me crazy. Courage. What are the 6 characteristics of effective leadership? Well, we talked about one last week. Number 1, the first characteristic of an effective leader is respect, respectful. An effective leader is first and foremost respectful to the people that they lead. Now, what is respect really? I told the story of how I came into a new company in 2005. I thought I was a great leader. I thought I was an effective leader. I went through the forum. I saw the people go up. I'm like, I'm going to be the one. I told the story, right? I'm going to be the one that goes up there. The next year comes by. I'm sitting there. They don't call my name. I'm mad. I'm like, what's going on? My people don't know who they got. They got a great leader, right? I get my survey results. Respect is the lowest score. Looks like I'm ineffective. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Fast forward, HR's going through the results with me and my team. I get the feedback from them that, yeah, here's how you're being disrespectful, Linal. You're looking at your phone when we talk to you. You do this. You don't give us your full attention in one-on-ones. You disrupt them for other leaders, etc. You're disrespectful. You want to know why that was hard for me to see? Because when my senior leaders did it to me, I didn't see it as disrespect. As a leader, I was following the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if you did it to me and you were my leader, I wouldn't see it as disrespect. I'm also Gen X. I was led by baby boomers, right? I see things differently. What I perceive as respectful and disrespectful is just different. I was leading millennials. They were like, hey, you got to pay attention to me. When I'm talking, I need you to listen, right? A lot of times we'll say, oh, they're so needy. Oh, they need this. Gen Z. Look at Gen Z. Yeah, but do you know them? Do you know them well enough to understand what respect looks like for them? Are you going to change the whole generation? Or as a leader, do you intend to be effective where you learn the generation? Respectful. 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 Respect is not the golden rule. Respect is creating a level of intimacy where I know you so well, I understand what respect looks like for you. This is, when we look at only 11% of leaders in North America are effective, I believe that one of the largest reasons why is because we don't slow down long enough to understand the people that we lead, so we know what respect looks like to them. We become so highfalutin. We got all the titles. We come and go. We don't even understand the impact we're having on people. We don't understand when we walk out the room, they frown. When you walk in, they, how you doing, sir? How you doing, ma'am? Oh, they like me. When you walk out the room, they're like, oh. You think we're getting done if that's how they feel? You think there's a high level of productivity? You think you can move the needle as a leader if that's how they feel? You and your whole department will sink. Respect. Characteristic number 1. Now, I want you to notice something. I actually taught you how to do all these things already. This is why we had to go through that first. If you missed the first series, the first 3 series, you gotta go back. You gotta go back now. And let me say this, and I'm not exaggerating. If we were to add up the dollar amount for the value of the training I've shared on the air over the last 3 or 4 shows, you're already at $100,000, over $100,000. You think if a company, the kind of companies that call me, the Prudentials, the Googles, the Levi Strauss and companies, the Ulta Beauties, the Foot Lockers, they're like, you think they call me up, hey, can you come in and do this? I'm like, oh, I'll come do it for a couple of, no, man, you want me to work with your leaders? Like it's going to cost you because this ain't easy. It's not easy to teach. How do we make sure they get it? How do we make sure they walk away with it? How do we make sure they practice it? It's more than just listening to the words. Characteristic number 2 of an effective leader is this is a leader that leads with integrity. A leader that leads with integrity. I'm not talking about the integrity that's on the wall, right? On the wall at the office, integrity. I'm talking about the integrity that you can feel, the integrity that you know, the integrity that's consistent, the integrity that you can rely on. Rely on. The folks on my team know they're going to get paid on payday. Right? They know that. Integrity. What is integrity defined? Integrity, I want you to hear this. Integrity is the commitments that you make. By the way, this is your integrity. This ain't somebody else imposing on you. Because most people, the organization may say one thing, but they look at their leader, right? People don't leave jobs, they leave leaders. So when it comes to integrity, if they're leaving, it's because of you. Why are they leaving? Because you made a commitment, but your actions didn't align and your words didn't align. That's inconsistent. That don't feel healthy for me. I got to go. Your commitments, your words, your actions. Your commitment, I'm sorry, I did it in the wrong order. Your commitment, your words, your actions, all aligned. I can trust this leader. When they say what they say, they're going to do it. I can trust this leader. Your commitments, your words, your actions. This is why every leader needs to have a leadership commitment that they're anchored in. I'm anchored in it, even when it's hard. I know the choices I need to make. I know the words I need to spew, right? Wouldn't it be nice is when we went to the polls, instead of all these commercials, all we had was just clear leadership commitments. It's a Democrat. I don't care. What's his leadership commitment? It's a Republican. I don't care. What's his leadership commitment? And how has he shown us that commitment over the time he's been in office? Right now, I think we have all new folks, all new senators, all new congressmen and women, all new, and definitely a new president. If that's how we were voting. And by the way, that's not a political statement. I'm just calling it like I see it. Don't get mad at me. What is integrity? Leads with integrity. That's effective leadership. What is integrity? Commitment, words, actions aligned. I'm looking at myself right now. Forget everybody else. It's like, man, am I showing up this way? Am I showing up this way as a leader? Characteristic number 3. I gave you everything you need already. Characteristic number 3. Values-based leadership. Values-based leadership. As a leader, do you know your core values? That's what people need, man. In a world where change is queued, where change is coming so fast, the last thing I need is to worry about if my leader's going to show up upset, irritated, short, come Monday morning. It's the last thing I need. It's the last thing organizations need. We see it happening. Leading by a clear set of core values. What are your core values? Do people know what you believe in? Are you predictable in that way? A lot of times they say predictable people are boring. But guess what else? You feel safe. I bet you feel safe. I bet you feel safe. Number 3, values-based leadership. See, I taught you how to do all this already, right? We went there. We didn't go as deep. And one of the things I plan to do in 2026 is to take the leadership community of Nature's Leadership Code. Like, we're going to go deep into this all throughout the year. Characteristic number 4. Characteristic number 4 is counterintuitive. But characteristic number 4 is a leader that knows how to hold people accountable. That really ties in with leads with integrity. How many times have you seen people do things in the office place, do things in the business, and you look at the leader and the leader, a lot of times it's convenient to be busy then versus actually have the hard conversation. When I heard this one, I was at a readout and I stood in line for 30 minutes because it felt counterintuitive. Because part of how these 6 characteristics were born was from surveys that went out to individuals and how they assessed their leaders, right? Top 6 characteristics of effective leadership. And I said, you mean the people who were being led by these folks complained about accountability? And likely they were complaining about what they saw, what they didn't see for their peers, right? They should be held accountable. But I knew that part. But I'm like, is that what they actually are saying? They want to be held accountable? So I went up and I asked a consultant who was sharing this information. It's at the University of Chicago. I said, hey, can you tell me more about characteristic number 4, holding people accountable? Like, it seems counterintuitive. And when I work with leaders, a lot of times that ain't, that's it's hard to do. And it feels like if I hold you accountable, you don't like me anymore. Like my stock falls with you. And she said, it's quite the opposite. She asked me if I had children. At the time I didn't. I said, no, I had no children. She said, okay, well, with children, and I get this now, with children, they want to know that they matter. And one of the ways they know that they matter is when you hold the line on the things you say are important. It's no different than with leaders. It's no different than with employees. She was like, employees want to know that they're valuable. If the role that they play is valuable, that means you must speak up. And if you don't speak up, they begin to question their value. They become disengaged. And I was like, it made so much sense. But I was like, so then why is the conversation so difficult? And she was like, you always have to speak into resistance. Light bulb moment. Yes. Whatever it is I'm supposed to do is always met with resistance. Typically, it's the resistance to the interpretation I have of how the other person is going to feel. But effective leaders know how to hold people accountable. They know how to do it in alignment with characteristic number 5, which is providing timely feedback. Providing timely feedback. I don't care who you are. You don't want to hear about something that happened a month ago. That's why performance reviews have the flavor they have in most people's mouths. Because here I am sitting with you for my 2025 performance review, and you start talking about something I did back in May of 2025. I had no idea that was a problem. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And now you're just now telling me? What? How do you expect somebody to respect you if you do that to them? If you know what, as a leader, if I missed it, I don't even write it. You know what, I meant to say this to them. I can't even put this on the page, man. I'm going to bring this up now, a year later. Providing timely feedback. As a leader, are you a coward? Do you hide behind performance reviews instead of holding your people accountable every day, every week, every month, providing that feedback? Do you hide behind performance review? You spew everything out, 45 minutes. Oh, I got to get to the next one. Sorry. Give them a meets expectation and 2%, 1.5% raise, and then you expect to be effective? You're just trying to survive. You're doing it the easy way. It's only a matter of time before you lose your leadership. You can't go on that way. Here's the other thing. What you're dropping in terms of karma is going to swing back on you one day. Do you want that? You want to be led that way? Come on. For those of us who are leaders, we got to step up, man. Now, here's the other thing I hear on characteristic number 5, providing timely feedback. Linal, you don't understand how busy I am. Right, but if you have a team and you understand what it means to lead, that means you have someone on the team who is functioning in a way that is not rowing the whole team forward. Like, think about you on a rowboat, right? Everybody's rowing. If somebody's not rowing in the way they should be rowing, you got to put down your oar and say, yo, row differently. Otherwise, y'all going to be going left. Y'all going to be going right. You're going to crash into something. You got to stop. It's that impaired. It's the same way in business. The problem is many of us are asleep behind the wheel. And that's why companies like Blockbuster crash. That's why companies like Kodak crash. That's why these companies crash. That's why they get bought out. That's why you have mergers and acquisitions. And nowadays you don't even know a company is failing because they just get bought. Half the time they didn't intend to sell. There were little small characteristics across senior leadership that were going unaccounted for that made them ineffective. And because they were ineffective leaders, they became ineffective in the marketplace. Providing timely feedback, the ability to pause and have the conversation, no matter how busy you are. The ability to pause and create the relationship. By the way, part of holding people accountable and providing timely feedback is so much easier when you're in relationship. If I got to tell Ade something, I don't got to try to build a relationship first. There's something I want, hey, man, I want to see this a little differently. I don't have to say, man, maybe I should take him out to lunch or breakfast, because after the show, I'm like, all right, bye. Right? I fake like we got a relationship in here. And then on the flip side, like, I'll spend no time with him. Like, all right, man, that's why I show me, send me an email. Bye. I'm too busy. He's too junior. Because there's a relationship, I can hold him accountable immediately. I provide timely feedback. Hey, man, here's something I want us to do differently. By the way, I do it all with respect, right? Characteristic number 1, all with respect. Characteristic number 6, effective coaching. Effective coaching. Now, some folks going to think, I'm an effective coach. Let me tell you about coaching. Don't. A lot of times folks say, Linal Harris is my coach because they listen to the show. This is teaching. Linal Harris is your teacher, not your coach. Because the thing about coaching, this is the first thing I learned when I went through my coaching certification course, is that a great coach listens twice as much as they speak. Effective coaching is a top characteristic, which means as a leader, I actually got to shut up and listen. And it makes me more effective. How does that work? Well, because now you're being respectful. Now you know what the person is thinking. Now you know. Now you actually know how to hold them accountable. Now you know what respect looks like to them. Right? Now you know things that you didn't know. And maybe instead of accusing them, effective coaches ask questions. You ask questions. So here's the question for you. If you call yourself a leader, what characteristics will you focus on developing going into 2026? What do you need to develop? What do you need to develop? Whatever it is, write it down. Take a moment. Write it down. Get present to it. What do you need to develop as a leader? Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WVON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Linal Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.